Yeah. So speaking of some of your engineers, give a shout out to your team. I think they're doing a
Yeah,
great job. We've seen a lot of the the art design and
yeah.
development, and a lot of the gameplay and mechanics are really exciting. Tell us a little bit about your team size, your development, and in Web3 gaming, runway is important. So how well capitalized are you for the next years? Because we want to make sure the game launches and we're able to get into it before you would have to do any additional capital raises or anything. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that positioning for Civitas.
So we were like I said, a pre-existing company. We're not a startup that just formed just to sort of make a game for the first time and raise. Directive Games has been fully functional and running on its own for the last 7 years. Like, we're not a new company, so we're established. We've been there making products and working in the space. We raised quite a large round, especially for the end of 2021. We raised 20 million, and I think when we did that, our strategy wasn't like, hey, let's just raise as much as we can. It was really like, hey, look, we don't want to do another raise in 6 months or 8 months. The market is really unpredictable. Like, let's raise to what we need, that we can kind of get the game to where we want before we kind of have to think of that. And we're very kind of mindful on the team size we have to accomplish that. Definitely, games isn't a thing where more is always better, in terms of team size. You lose a lot of just the culture on a games team if you just get too many people, and making decisions get kind of more difficult. And also making decisions if you made the wrong choice before on something. You want the ability that you might think something's fun, but you don't know it's fun until you actually try it. And you don't want to be like, well, now the team's so big, we have 30 guys that need this thing to work to get them working, otherwise it's wasted. Because then you tend to stick with bad decisions just to kind of keep the team busy.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely want to be at a size that we have more like small pockets of micro teams. So we have a very amazing backend team that we have our own proprietary tech of things that we're supporting for AR, things that we're kind of supporting called Camo, which is like our backend in terms of like how we're sort of building this single world. Like I said before, with AR side, so we have these micro pockets of teams that work on different things, and they sort of function like on their own. Obviously, we have people who overlap across multiple teams, kind of ensuring like the vision stays there. Like myself and other members that are there just to make sure, like, hey, this is like the product vision. But we kind of let them kind of run on its own thing, so they can kind of stay very agile and just kind of own their parts of the game and move it forward. So we don't have that. So our team is over 50 people right now, but it's not 50 people are working on one thing. And so we have like the team right now that's kind of working on like the chosen and getting those assets done, the animation, the rigging, and there's just still a lot of engineering work behind that for the tools needed. We're very much into a lot of procedural pipelines with like Houdini and Unreal Engine. So we obviously have support structures building that. But at the same time, we have a team all the way behind that working on gameplay, making sure just the engine, we can make a build every day, we can play, hey, the UI's in, hey, the land is loading, hey, there's a front end, just making sure things are working. So it's important that you stay agile enough that all these things move. So we're still hiring, but I think we're not hiring, there's no critical hires needed. So we're not like, hey, we can't finish this game unless we get X. We just have like an open thing because we always looking for great engineers or great designers or for great artists. So we'll constantly have opening just in case that kind of special person kind of comes in. And I just kind of tweeted like an article that just got released a couple of days ago about some of the new members on our team. And you can see we're bringing in a lot of rock stars like onto it that we want to make sure that they're. But we definitely even open the door to a lot of really smart kind of juniors that come in, that people are hungry. Because like I said, I've been in the game space a long time, but there's lots of things I have learned just by like a new hire, first
Mm-hmm.
person out of school, first time they work on a game. And you know part of the games is a fun because you kind of learn a little bit from everybody. So we're always looking, but there's no kind of critical hires that we have. When it comes to like runway and like where do we see in the future, I think right now we have no plans to raise at all. We don't have any sort of goal right now to raise again. Now that doesn't mean we won't, But I think what's critical for us is before we sort of even look at raising, that we have a very good snapshot of what the gameplay looks like and it's playable and you really get a feel of what we're going. And I think
Mhm.
once we've sort of locked down that and we really understand like, hey, this part's fun, the community sees what we're going to be playing and what you're doing. And then we potentially at some point might look at a raise again just for that more longer term kind of, security with it. But right now for the next year or two, I don't really see ourselves raising as a priority. And again, that's kind of why we raised 20 million, that we didn't have to stress ourselves in this situation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think getting to Mars is not cheap, and so it won't be
No,
in Civitas either. So
nope. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, as I think we've heard over this interview, you're very well connected with studios and developers in Web 2 and Web 3. So one of the big interesting questions that I've got is: are we going to see Web 2 gaming companies and studios realize the risk that Web 3 poses to them and actually make the transition to Web 3, whether it's internally or through maybe an acquisition, M&A type of approach,
Mm.
or as we've often seen in other industries, will that adjustment and change to the underlying business model be really too much of a loss of control for them to make that adjustment, and they just won't be able to come over?
I think, and again, this is like mostly my view. So, I'm definitely not gonna say other people are saying is wrong. Everyone has like really good opinions. There's a lot of smart people in the space that have really good views. My personal view is Web3 is really appealing right now for I think indie and mid-sized studios,
Mm,
and for different reasons. So I think if you're like an indie or a mid-sized studio, I think Web3 is definitely something you should look at. And I understand there's, bad PR and some are just scared to go
mhm,
into it and lose the community they've grown. But I don't think it's something you should necessarily be scared of. And I think you stick with the same focus of making a great game and sticking with your vision and having a way that that works in Web3. Don't fall into the trap that you have to see kind of these, bad actors in the space with like really bad, token designs and just looking to exit on people. Really think about a great game and why it's fun. And
mhm,
I think that's gonna be the best thing for the space is really saying, hey, look, you can do this. And I think there's a lot of negative things also in traditional gaming. And there's a reason why there's more publishers than game studios. And the relationship in traditional gaming from a indie to a mid-sized studio with at least most publishers. There's some really great publishers out there that are trying to not be that also, but it's really difficult space to kind of be in, that you really need a publisher and they really sort of control the fate of many studios. And this is kind
mhm,
of how people like EA and others used to buy up companies all the time because they kind of trapped a lot of studios with this publisher relationship. And
mhm,
so I think in Web3 there's a chance for freedom. And what I mean by that is it's a space that you have more of a direct relationship with your community. It's a relationship that if you sort of have the right cap table and the right partners involved that have the same shared vision as you can almost get the same services you could get out of a publisher with your cap table. And you have this chance to make your game and really sort of control your fate more. And you're not sort of like under the grasp of like a publisher deciding everything for you. Now, when it comes to larger studios, I think right now they're interested in Web3, but it doesn't make sense to them right now. One, I guess that some side will be scared of the bad PR, and you saw that
mhm.
with Ubisoft,
It'll be
which
yeah,
was too bad. I think they were quite brave to even just try it, but they got the bad PR. But on the second hand, I just think the revenue models that exist in Web3 right now just aren't mature enough for larger studios that it just makes
mhm,
sense for them. They have a very, very high burn rate, right? So
right.
they have to be very more clear with their ROI in terms of what they're
Mm,
trying to earn. And right now, with traditional gaming through a premium purchase to in-app purchases to ad revenue to subscription models to like little VIP models or whatever it is, a combination of all of those in one, they just have a lot more kind of access to generate revenue and through DLCs and multiple sequels every year,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be, they just have that access more to really kind of know, hey, we have a proven model to generate X. And I think right now for Web3, it's just the gamer base isn't there enough for them to want it, and it's not mature enough, which I think is great news for us. It really lets us kind of have studios that are really caring and passionate about what they're making and really trying to define the space to what it is. And we're not just getting like a new FIFA every year in Web3.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good news, but I would want, and I am seeing it. Like I do talk to a lot of traditional game studios, like the small to indie ones that I talk about, and they're very interested in the space. I think as they sort of learn that, oh, hey, I can make a game and I don't even need a token, or hey, I can just make a game like this and that's fine. Yeah, it totally can work. And you can
Mm-hmm.
structure it like this. It's really up to you to decide if it works for your game design. So you don't have to have like a game like Street Fighter with a token model. You don't need that. Or, there's a lot of ways they can approach it. They don't have to exactly kind of do what everyone else is doing in the space, and it
Mm-hmm.
can work. So I think it's like really up to them. And I'm a huge component of like, we should promote and we should have great PR and really engage with other game studios. And I think that's the number one people we should be kind of engaging with is game developers, and try to talk them through their concerns in the space or talk them through their worries and what can happen. And if they can kind of understand that, I think they'd be encouraged, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in that, because that's exactly what we had to do in Directive Games. We have amazing, talented developers who've been in the space, and all they ever saw was the bad PR. And so when we had to say, hey, we're making a game, we're coming into the space, a lot of them were like, wait, what? We're this now? And so we had to walk them through the game design, every step of like why Web3, how this can work,
Mm-hmm.
how we're different from what you're seeing here. And then once they started building and they got it, they're like, oh, this is actually really cool. So, I think it's all of our jobs as developers in Web3, yourself included, and in the community, to kind of be that voice and, shame the bad, promote the good, right? And I think we have to do it together, because even in traditional gaming, we do that. When Diablo Immortal came, I'm a huge Blizzard fan. I got into my first PC was because of Diablo 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pentium 2, that was it. Like that got me into it. And, I'm a huge fan and of what they've made in the past. But,
Mm-hmm.
games like Diablo Immortal are not things we should be like promoting when you to spend $100,000 just to level up your character. And there's bad models in traditional gaming. So I think in any space we're in for gaming, we should always be shaming the bad and promoting the good. And we take that quite serious here in terms of like how people view Civitas. And when people ask us about, hey, do I have to buy an NFT? Do I have to have a token to play the game? It was a first day decision that we need a free to play path in the game. And you're not gated by a paywall. You really want you to come in and play it, see if this is the game for you, which we're confident people will have fun. And then they'll go, hey, this is something I want to stay in. I want to be more involved in the game, and they have that option. But yeah, I think it's all of our responsibility.
Yeah, no, I for sure agree. And one of the important things I remind developers and builders about is each of these elements in Web3 is a tool, right?
Yeah.
And so tokens and DAOs and NFTs and so on, these are all tools. And if you're
Yeah.
building, a game that doesn't require a guild, you don't put guilds in. If you
Yeah.
are building a game that doesn't require a marketplace or PvP or any elements of gaming, you just don't put that in if it doesn't make sense. And that's where
Right.
I think we have to get to, is where we look at the tool belt and say, okay, what are the Web3 elements that make sense for me based on the design, based on what is the actual goal that I'm trying to build in here around my title, so that I get that immersive gameplay and experience that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with you.